We're in the midst of an epidemic of sleeplessness. An epidemic with serious ramifications for our health and welfare, and even our spirituality. Insomnia now affects over half of all adults. Those who don't get good sleep are at increased risk for infections, obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even cancer and psychiatric disorders, especially clinical depression. Sleeplessness appears to be strongly linked to chronic inflammation, a subtle form of biological smoldering that underlies most major kinds of illness. It goes without saying that poor sleep also affects our productivity, our performance, and our overall happiness. Conversely, and I think most importantly, people who do get good sleep enjoy immeasurable benefits of vibrant health and well-being. I believe that the sleeplessness epidemic is due in large part to a lost regard for the sacredness of night and sleep. In recent decades, the experience of sleep has been abducted from its natural home in our lives and in our hearts and recast in terms of strictly scientific and medical perspectives. As a culture, we now tend to view sleep primarily as a biomedical and even a mechanical process that's more like recharging a battery than it is about refreshing one's soul or spirit. In the long run, such a perspective is limiting and inevitably will perpetuate our sleeplessness. It downplays our personal responsibility, and it encourages a growing dependence on what I think are very ineffective and harmful sleeping medications. We're also in the midst of a promising revolution in our understanding of health and well-being, a revolution that's restoring our regard for the critical role of spiritual practice in health. And nowhere is this more evident than in the impact of yoga on ameliorating illness and promoting well-being. These include things like a regard for rhythm, a philosophy of gentleness, sensitivity to yin or the feminine principle, a recognition of the need to let go and surrender, and an emphasis on balance and healthy lifestyle. Ultimately, we're not getting good sleep in large part because we're not really getting what sleep is really about. I think we need to carefully reconsider what sleep is and to restore a sense of what is personal and sacred to sleep. Whether we're aware of it or not, we all take a stance toward night that strongly informs and impacts our relationship with sleep. It's about becoming what I call more night-minded, assuming a new healing posture toward night and sleep. And the yoga of sleep is also about opening to a fundamental shift in consciousness, maybe even stretching our consciousness beyond points we once thought were possible. I'm using the term yoga here to refer to a multi-component approach that includes asanas, or physical postures, and meditative techniques to improve health and well-being, as well as promote spiritual growth. I believe strongly that sleep is fundamentally a sacred process and can significantly support our spiritual growth. What is sleep? I think our views of it are limited, biased, and I would say even distorted. The first step in improving our sleep, then, is in clarifying and correcting our views of it. We know that sleep is part of the rhythmic flow of consciousness, occurring in repeating nightly cycles that are about 90 minutes in length. Each of these cycles includes varying proportions of both sleep and dreams, with most of our actual sleep occurring in the first part of the night and most of our dreaming occurring in the latter part of the night. Our sleep varies in depth, and at its very best, what's called deep or slow wave sleep carries us into a state of just profound rest. Here, our breathing, our heart rate, and brain waves all slow quite significantly. And very importantly, our energy is withdrawn from the activity of waking life and diverted toward deep sleep's rejuvenation and healing. Although some biological activity obviously continues throughout the night, sleep uses considerably less energy than waking does. During deep sleep, HGH, or human growth hormone, is released, our immune systems are galvanized, and certain kinds of memories become consolidated. Unfortunately, as we age, most of us experience a rather dramatic decrease in our deep sleep. REM, sleep, supports emotional healing as well as further consolidation of long-term memory. And despite the obvious importance of dreaming, it appears to be decreasing in modern life. I believe that we are at least as dream-deprived as we are sleep-deprived. So many commonly used substances, including alcohol and caffeine, and medications, such as antidepressants, sleeping pills, tranquilizers, and many others, will, to varying degrees, suppress our dreaming. When dreaming is suppressed, it becomes pressurized, and it can bleed or rebound back into deep sleep. These kinds of dream rebounds are, interestingly enough, the most common sleep pattern that we see in depressed people. The metaphor that depression is about losing one's dreams may have a very real, literal underpinning. Healthy sleep and dreams are mediated by two key rhythmic factors. These include melatonin and body temperature. When we're exposed to nightly dim light or darkness, the brain begins to convert serotonin into melatonin. In short, melatonin is the queen of our nighttime biology. It oversees the body's night shift. Melatonin levels are also inversely linked to body temperature. In other words, as melatonin levels gradually increase through the night to peak in the early morning hours, our body temperature simultaneously decreases, reaching its lowest point in the latter part of the night, when we're actually immersed in our most protracted period of dreaming. As we move toward awakening, our body temperature climbs again as energy is being restored to carry us through the waking day. I think of this decrease in our core body temperature as a kind of dissipation of energy. If waking life is primarily about obtaining and utilizing energy, then sleep is more about diverting and dissipating energy. Once again, some energy is diverted into rejuvenation and restoration, while excess energy is simply released. In a very literal sense, sleep is cool, and dreaming is the coolest part of sleep. Sacred perspectives of sleep are based primarily on a study of personal, subjective experiences of sleep consciousness. I think this offers us a much more complete answer to the question, what is sleep? I also think that sacred perspectives would agree that sleep plays a critical role in supporting a healthy waking life, but they teach us that there's so much more to it. From a sacred perspective, sleep is not seen as the mere absence of waking, but as the presence of peace and serenity. I believe this is one of the essential spiritual gifts of sleep, and it's offered to each of us if we are simply open to receiving it.